The great judgment is upon us. The great division is crystal clear. To the awake, welcome, light warrior. To the woke, welcome to your recruitment into your initiation. To the completely asleep, great. Greenhorns aren't mind controlled yet. It'll be easier for you to receive insight and information. This channel is created through peace, love, forgiveness, and compassion. To the trolls, oh, the most beautiful, beautiful trolls, you are the most welcome. It'll be an uncomfortable experience for you, possibly, unless you're trolling with the intention to learn something. For the light will always illuminate the dark. Cheers to hoping you'll realize you've been rooting for the wrong team. The great shift is upon us. We're not the same people we once were, thank God. The tolerable has become intolerable. The silenced are seeking their truth and finding their voices. Picking and choosing daily battles are no longer choices, but serious means to survival. The initiation is about reclaiming the power of our voices, realizing some situations no longer deserve our time, energy, and focus. My name is Sarah, and I will be your host. Today, the video I'm making is actually not about a song in particular. This one got me a little heated up. This is a little bit of music politics, and it's discussing the tension between Motley Crue's Nikki Sixx and Pearl Jam's Eddie Veddar. So, yeah, and this one's, oh, sorry, I got a cat that's chasing around something. This one I find interesting because I'm the typical 90s girl, right? However, all my boyfriends have been like much older and they're like the 80s banger guys, right? So for an example, well, my first love, he was in a band and he was a bassist, but he played all metal. Like he was, I guess, considered the 90s generation, but all of his bandmates, sorry about that, all of his bandmates were older and, all they played was metal. It was strictly metal. And then Barry, I was 18, he was 36. We were together for a couple of years in Vancouver, and he was straight up a headbanger. Like, the worst thing that could happen to Barry was if his blow dryer broke. No word of a lie. And I had so much fun with Barry. He was the typical, he drank way too much. Kind of the reason, well, besides the fact he was twice my age, but the excessive drinking was just a little too much for my little 18-year-old mind. However, I think I learned from him, like, he totally escaped into music. I would come home from work and, like, I know he'd be doing, like, a pelvic thrust and have Motley Crue just blaring, and he would just be, girls, girls, girls. And, I couldn't help but be in a good mood. I couldn't get mad at him. But then if I walk into a house with, like, Godsmack or something and I'm already triggered, I'm like, ugh, right? And I just find it funny with the metal bands. Like, whoa, Phoenix, stop it. My dog, sorry. I find with the metal bands, I'm instantly, yeah. You want to shout, like I have sat here for hours on end just watching Tommy Lee and his like the coolest stuff he does on stage, like when he has his drum solos on his little roller coasters and he's bringing people up with him and he's having so much fun that I find as I'm watching him, I'm smiling because I'm seeing him just bounce around and have so much fun, right? Or out here in Edmonton, a big thing in the 80s, we all went to West Ed all the time. And, it was all the rides inside the mall and, Motley Crue and Poison and, Guns N' Roses. Like, they ran West Ed Fantasyland at the time. So, I have a lot of, I'm smiling right now thinking about, Motley Crue and Poison and Iron Maiden and, like, just all of them. Like, I'm just smiling. Like, I want to go put some music on, right? Anyway, so let's get into it. Tension between Motley Crue's Nikki Sixx explains beef with Pearl Jam's Eddie Veddar. It all went down a couple of months ago. Nikki couldn't understand why Eddie wanted to take a shot at Motley Crue. Eddie gave an interview with New York Times, and in that interview, he used it as an opportunity to shit on the people who helped pave the way before him. This is a quote. A quote, which one was this from? Yes, this is a quote from Eddie Vedder. This was during that interview with New York Times. Okay. He goes, I know, I just hear the surfer voice, right? I used to work in San Diego, loading gear at a club. I'd end up being at shows that like wouldn't have chosen to like go to, bands that monopolized late 80s MTV, the metal bands that I'm trying to be nice, I despise. Girls, girls, girls. And Motley Crue. Fuck you. I hated it. I hated how it made the fellas look. I hated how it made the women look. It felt so vacuous. Just so everybody understands or knows what vacuous means, it means having or showing a lack of thought or intelligence, mindless. I find that really interesting. What a hard blow. Like, respect is earned and not given. And the truth of the matter, Mr. Eddie, is that
low battery
the crew is your elders and they're the ones that paved the way for you. Actually, let's be honest here, it was Andrew Wood whose place you slipped into. When I've said that, if you haven't watched my Chris Cornell video, go listen to it. And I always say, no, I'm not going there with Eddie Vedder because, you think of certain things. I've watched lots of Eddie Vedder concerts and he's always got a beer or he's like, and he's half corked. Like, tell me I'm not lying, man. That's why I won't even pay for a ticket. I saw a drunk man talk every night in my life as long as I was with my kid's dad. Do you think I'm going to go pay to see a drunk man sing? I don't think so. And come on. I have seen him spit beer on the crowd and spit. He's singing and he's spitting and he's vulgar in my opinion. Vulgar. But let's talk about Nikki Sixx. Why don't you do your research and find out how many years Nikki Sixx has been sober for? And you want to know what else is really, humbling? Is that they've written books. They've been very honest about their past. And that's why I respect them, because they rose above. They rose above their bullshit, But Eddie, you sure seem to be hitting the bottle quite hard. Even Chris Cornell, he was sober for how long? And everybody, what people just want to talk about, drugs and shit he did years and years before his death. Grow up, man. Really? So let's get back to this, because when he, just with his comments about the vacuous, vacuous, that make fellas look bad. I'll tell you what, when Pearl Jam first came out, everybody loved them. He was hot, he had the nice hair, he had the beautiful eyes. All the women fell in love with his looks. It wasn't his, marbles stuck in his voice sound, right? And I'll tell you another thing. He was mainstream. That's when I was like, ugh, another mainstream, right? You turn on the TV, there he is singing Jeremy, right? And that's the other thing. Let's talk about Jeremy. Do you know how much he offended Jeremy's family? Okay, a lot of these amazing bands are writing from their personal experiences, their heart. You know where Jeremy came from? If you read articles from a few I read, it was basically in the newspaper. And he wrote a song about something he read in the newspaper. And do you know how much that hurt Jeremy's parents? It basically was saying they were neglectful, da-da-da-da-da. He hurt people to write a song. And sure, he made millions off it, but he hurt people. And he exploited the suicide and depression of a kid. That's somebody you're rooting for. But where I was was all the people that I was associated with that I felt were just didn't know who they were, totally insecure people that were just looking for acceptance and looking for belonging, and just people that annoyed me. I couldn't have an intellectual conversation with them whatsoever. Those were the people that were I love her, I love Eddie Vedder. Oh my God. And they had posters of him up and they were standing in line for his concerts. And the minute those type of people were so obsessed with him, I'm yeah. See, he's speaking to the different people. He's speaking to people that are just got no substance. That's how I feel. It's so generic. I'm sorry, Eddie, but I find that your music is all about women. Either you got super brokenhearted and just simply can't get past it, or you're stuck on yourself and you're trying to be some, Rico Suave, which, to me, it's repelling. As a woman in her 40s, I'm repulsed. Period. like Andy Wood, fuck yeah. Then that's why I don't want to cut down Pearl Jam, because I absolutely love the other band members. They're super talented. It's just that Eddie Vedder gets under my skin. He's got this arrogance to him, but he's passive aggressive with it. It's like when I was in therapy for the cycle of abuse, that he's a total, he's a mental abuser. It's that, he's definitely a wolf in sheep's clothing in my mind. And I feel the same way about, what's his name? Dave Grohl. Ugh. No, I just see the two guys. Dave Grohl was the third drummer in Nirvana. I think he definitely wasn't the original, but he sure kind of swooped in there and became him. I've never ever gone to one of his concerts. Never will. I find that when people are listening to him, people that like the Foo Fighters, they're so obsessed with it that it's nonstop. And it's can you turn him off, please? And that's the way I feel about Pearl Jam. Is that people get so obsessed with them. It's God, it's the same song on repeat with different lyrics. Give me some Alice, give me some Chris Cornell, give me some Audioslave, give me some Soundgarden, give me some Stone Temple Pilots, Filter, give me, even 9 Inch Nails, anything that has different sound, Motley Crue. That's what I love about Motley Crue. You got slow songs, you got fast songs, you got fun songs, you got angry songs. You can put one album on by Motley Crue and it'll hit every emotion you have. I put Pearl Jam on and I'm oh, I wish my boyfriend treated me like that. Oh, I'm so lonely. Oh, I feel like shit every time I listen to Pearl Jam. And then there's Better Man and Daughter, and just even look at the song titles. But I will give, that's the thing. I love Pearl Jam. It's just Eddie Vedder gets under my skin. He gets under my skin. He gets under my skin. If there was a different lead singer, I'd probably be back to freaking loving them. But, when you have the lead singer who's representing your band and he's leaving a sour taste in some people's mouths, unfortunately the whole band goes down with that lead singer who's just annoying a lot of people, right? Okay, sorry, I kind of went off a little bit. So anyways, I wanted to go out that, so that little, I got triggered by his response in that interview. Go through that response one more time with the New York Times. He said, I used to work in San Diego loading gear at a club. I'd end up being at shows that I wouldn't have chosen to go to. Bands that monopolized late 80s MTV. The metal bands that I'm trying to be nice, I despised. Girls, 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 and Motley Crue. Fuck you. I hated it. I hated how it made the fellas look. I hated how it made the women look. It felt so vacuous. You know what? I'll tell you one thing, because I'm going to get into Nikki Sixx's response. Eddie said, fuck you. You're okay, grow up, man. Have a little respect. But Nikki Sixx actually said F you. He didn't say F-U-C-K. He said F you. At least it showed he had a little bit of dignity in class. So then Veddar continued. Guns N' Roses came out and, thank God, at least had some teeth. What? But are your teeth real, Eddie? Have you had no teeth work? Because your teeth don't look real to me. They look like they've been worked on. Anyway. But I'm circling back to say that one thing that I appreciated was that in Seattle and the alternative crowd, the girls could wear their combat boots and sweaters, and their hair looked like Cat Powers and not Heather Locklear's. Nothing against Heather. They weren't selling themselves short. They could have an opinion and be respected. I think that's a change that lasted. It sounds so trite. A remark, opinion, or idea, which is overused and consequently of little importance, lacking originality or freshness. You know what? I can go on the contrary with that. And in the 80s, when the girls were in their mini skirts and they looked pretty damn hot, right? Guys had to fight for their chicks. They had to fight to keep them. And then the 90s, it was interesting how all of a sudden the girls got pushed down. They got pushed down to, oh, you look beautiful without makeup. Oh, you look beautiful with your hair parted in the middle and all grungy. And oh, I love it when your pants are super baggy and you can't see your nice butt and your nice hips. And I love it when you wear your waffle shirt with your, flannel over top because nobody can see your perky breasts. Let's be honest here. Was you make it sound like it was freedom for women? I think it was suppression for women. And then women all of a sudden started feeling like shit about themselves. Because in the 80s, women felt good. They felt hot. You're saying they were sexualized. Let me tell you something. Sometimes we want to be sexualized. Not all women. And that's the thing. You got to know which women, we do. Do you know what? I have a good rack on me. Sorry, I'm going to cough here. And there's times when I get done up and I have a nice dress on, it feels good. It feels good to have the sisters like saying hi. I came out to say hello, but not out, but like having a little fun, right? Like that's the one thing that it was funny because when I was dressed up like that, most of us girls always had a belly shirt underneath that flannel. So the flannel would be, a little buttoned up. So that's what your parents saw. But when we were out at the skate park, because I was a skater chick, they called us Betties. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about what really happened. The big baggy corduroys, we'd have our flannel shirts wrapped around, our belly shirts hanging out. That's why we always had our belly buttons pierced and our ass crack and our little G-string showing, So let's be honest, we were sexualized too, but it was like discreet. It was secretive. At least in the 80s, there was no discreet, like sneaky. I mean, the girls didn't hide. They were in miniskirts. And in the 90s, well, we hid everything, and then clothes just came off gradually. And it was, give me a break. Come on. Anyway, that's just my opinion. You can hate me in the comments. I'm fine with that. I'm always up for a good debate. So I just want to throw that out there. So then he's saying, like, before the flannels and the corduroys, like the chicks wearing their, combat boots. I love my Doc Martens, but I love them because I love them, not because I didn't think they turned on guys. I never did. What we wore, if we wanted to look cute, was baby doll dresses with leggings and combat boots, right? Or those big wool sweaters, really big long ones with like leggings and combat boots. There were leggings. There was always like leggings. Anyway. And he's saying, but before that, it was bustiers. The only person who wore bustier in the 90s that I could appreciate was Perry Farrell. I don't understand why, like, Eddie's, like, hating on them, because I love Sub Pop really got offended when he called it grunge. It was alternative rock, right? So I loved growing up in those times. I love the Seattle sound, the Sub Pop, the alternative rock, right? But it doesn't mean I can't also love heavy metal hair bands, because I do, I do. Oh God, do I ever? Anyway, so Nikki Sixx took to his Twitter account to share his feelings about Pearl Jam's Eddie Veddar's comments, responding, "Made me laugh today reading how much the singer of Pearl Jam hated on Motley Crue. Now, considering that they're one of the most boring bands in history, it's kind of a compliment, isn't it?" And that's true. I mean, they hit their what's it called, brick wall. Like, I don't know. I don't hear too many people excited about like the new Pearl Jam album, because Eddie Veddar's pissed everybody off. And you know what? Really I think got a lot of us from the alternative rock community like a little like, what the hell, Eddie? Is when Chris Cornell died. Like, you really didn't give him a tribute at all. What was that about? I mean, as I've always said, I will never believe that Chris Cornell killed himself. He was murdered 100%. You can't tell me he wasn't. But I find it interesting how so many people die of these overdoses and really, bad played out suicides that just really don't make sense. But the ones who are still alive are the sellouts. The ones that didn't sell out, they sure died. They died over either of a suicide or a drug overdose. Like they're not even getting creative with it. But then in the autopsies, there's stuff like, Chris Cornell's head trauma, which was never spoken of. Like, really? And I did extensive research on his death, because I was like, oh, I hate cover-ups. I hate lies. I hate it when the media has a narrative and they push, and people just fall for it like walking sheep, right? But even if you see the autopsy report, he didn't have a bunch of drugs in the system. He had 2 Ativan. I'm like, anyway, okay, I'm going to stop because I'm getting a little worked up. Okay. So then Nikki added insult to injury. Nikki compared Eddie's vocal techniques to singing with marbles in your mouth. In addition to a Pearl Jam's fans response who tweeted in defense of Veddar, Sixx said, Remember, there were zillions of brown-haired bands for brown-haired fans. Go find them. You will know them by the bored look on their face. And it's so true. Like, Eddie Vedder fans look depressed, bored, bitter, and insecure. They're all those women that are like, nobody loves me. It's like so annoying. Yeah, people aren't rocking out to Eddie Vedder's cries all the time, let me tell you. Eddie Vedder was, to me, the one that annoyed me the most. Like, if I felt like he was not alternative rock, I'm like, oh, he's like the Justin Bieber of the 90s. There we go. Eddie Vedder was the Justin Bieber of the 90s. Pretty face. Okay. So, Nikki Sixx, in a recent video with a Brazilian music critic, discussed the feud with Eddie Vedder, explaining why he decided to respond to those disses. And he said, I'm not trying to be the guy that wrote Bastard because I'm not the guy who wrote Bastard. I wrote that song about somebody that ripped us off. I am the guy that if you F with me, I will F with you back. That's what this song is about. You take a swipe at my band, and I'll take a swipe at your band. You try to hurt my family, which is my band. I will try to hurt you. That's not something to be proud about. Nikki was then asked specifically about his criticism of Pearl Jam and why he responded, and he said, I remember going to MTV with a copy of Nevermind before it came out, Nirvana. Me and Tommy were on there like, we're like, hey, you gotta check out this band. You gotta check out this band. And they were bands, and because we knew they were upcoming bands, is what he said. I remember having a cassette. I think it was demos. It might have been early recordings with Rage Against the Machine. And I remember telling everybody about that. We have never been afraid to embrace music changing because that's the whole idea behind music. If you listen to Too Fast for Love and then you listen to The Dirt, you're like, well, it's the same band, but it has grown so. We've never had a problem with that. That's what I'm saying. Music has to grow, right? Nikki, you're awesome and you're still hot. My only thing is you want to take a crack at my band. I'm probably going to say something back, but what I don't understand is why the guy's even talking about my band. He's a successful guy. Listen, let's face it. The guy flies around in private jets. He lives in a mansion in a gated community. He sells out stadiums. And then he dresses at the thrift store and tries to pretend he's some guy in the 90s. Don't take a swipe at my band, dude. I mean, I'm at least being honest. And there you go. Here's the difference. I want you to watch any videos, any interviews. His concerts, Eddie Vedder's always drinking, okay? But I want you to remember, Nikki Sixx is sober. I want you to keep that in mind, okay? So just hold on one sec here. Hi, I'm back. Sorry, I had doggy drama. Okay, so let's go into some comments about these interviews between Nikki Sixx and Eddie Vedder and what people had to say about that. Somebody said, this is not news. 90s alternative bands have been dissing hair metal bands since they've been in existence. Somebody replied, that's the reason to exist. Change all the ridiculous things that were happening in the 80s. I mean, there are good hair metal bands, but some of them were a shame to look at. From these two bands, I stand by Pearl Jam just because they are all incredible musicians. The only talent in Motley Crue is Mick Mars. Tommy is flashy, but basic to listen to. I appreciate your comment, but I do not agree with you. I think Motley Crue has extreme talent. Okay. Another response. Shit, metal bands have been dissing hair metal glam bands in the mid to late 80s before grunge came around. Dave Mustaine publicly called glam bands gay Los Angeles music, which included Motley Crue. Then Metallica publicly used that term. Where was Nikki calling out Megadeth and Metallica? Laugh out loud. Nikki's first reply was reasonable, but then he kept on adding more and more stupid on top of it. Okay. Next response. I think everyone did at the end. Became boring too. Was way more interesting. Listen to early Soundgarden or Alice in Chains than the last albums from Warrant or Poison. Even Motley with their grunge album was boring. It's really sad because I think they're both like, why can't we just appreciate music, right? Like, why do we have to pick sides? That's what I'm saying. Eddie started it. Like, Eddie, why did you start this? Why did you have to start putting people in the middle of choosing between, 80s and 90s bands? Why did you do that? Like, why did you stir the pot? Because now I'm listening to all this, and it's my generation that's really annoying me right now, right? And we're wondering why music is dying, because musicians are sick of having their craft and their art shit on. Bottom line. That's why I haven't published my book yet, because I'm like, I'm waiting until I got some viewers that are awake enough to receive how much effort I've put in after 26 years of writing a trilogy. And right now, the people I see in the world, the way people are behaving and acting, no, you guys aren't ready. Somebody said, I just forgot all my hair metal tapes and went full onto my sister's Machine, Helmet, Ministry, and stuff like that. That was it. Nirvana was around, but I didn't understand them at that time. And somebody else said, funny because it's like a kid insulting his guitar teacher. Exactly. Thank you. Let's reread that. Funny because it's like a kid insulting his guitar teacher. Pearl Jam exists because of the rock bands that laid the foundation before them. You know what? Thank you. Somebody said, as a reply to that comment, but they weren't looking at hair metal bands. They took their style to 70s and 60s rock. They even admitted publicly that they used Clapton and Hendrix chops at that time, like in Why Go and Even Flow guitar solos. Oh, these people, see, it's 80s versus 90s. We got some people arguing here. Somebody said, to be honest, all rock kind of steals from each other. Exactly. Not steals, it grows from each other, right? Most every rock band owes something to the earlier Delta blues men. Yeah, you got it. And somebody said, I completely agree with you. Yep, so do I. And then the other guy, this is the 90s guy. We're going to go 80s and 90s. So we got Mr. 90s dude saying, haha, your logic is if there were no Motley Crue, there'd be no Pearl Jam. Laugh my fucking ass off. Eddie grew up on punk and folk music, not hair metal spandex music. Laugh out loud. Okay, I'm laughing at you right now because your logic. You're saying your logic is if there was no Motley Crue, there'd be no Pearl Jam. Okay, you know what? If Andy Wood hadn't have died, there would be no Pearl Jam. Get on your facts, buddy. You're a little too young for this feed if that's how you're thinking. Oh, and then our 80s guy replied, guitar musicianship increased in the 80s rock scene. You can hear that in songs like Alive and Even Flow. So I imagine the guys who actually wrote the song were at least fans of 80s skills. Mike McCready was too good to be punk or folk based. And then we have your little 90s person. I'm going to say it by the name. It looks like a guy. So here he's got to fight back because, he's got to make his point because he's so woke, right? He goes, I don't think Eddie was speaking for all of Pearl Jam. Mike and Stone have both talked about loving Kiss and metal bands, but Ed has always claimed to be more punk influenced. Also, why it is such a big deal to say he doesn't like a band? What is the big deal to say he doesn't like a band? We are all saying that bands we like or don't like in all these comments, but he's not allowed to dislike anything just because he's famous. He must like all bands that's ever made. Okay, the point is why in an interview? Why don't you promote yourself? Why don't you, with this whole pandemic crap, why aren't you promoting peace and love and why aren't you promoting something of substance? But if you take an interview with the New York Times as an opportunity to shit on another another musician's creation, you're the asshole. Grow up, Eddie. What are you, 50 something? Wake up. High school's so over, man. Okay, so then we have our 80s person responding. 80s generation. Fair enough. But of course, he gets a reaction when he gets out of his way to trash another band, especially a predecessor. Not that it's all off limits. He's certainly entitled to his opinion. Yeah, see? That's exactly what I'm saying. Even look at the mentality. The mentality of the people who rocked in the 80s, That's who I'm agreeing with. The comebacks from the 90s generation, it's just is of no substance. It's like with The Walking Dead, when they said you look for Eddie Vedder supporters and all you see is a bunch of bored people. Well, the comments that are coming through of the Eddie Vedder supporters, they're the boring comments. That's what I find so funny. So let's see what this person says. Funny that the number of 90s cult bands currently still active outnumbers the hair bands by a wide margin. All the hair bands are filling slots on the Cancel Out Festival tour. Yeah, because all the 90s singers who freaking rocked were, what do we say? Suicided. I say suicided. Like, I don't believe they committed suicide. Or they OD'd because somebody gave them a hot shot. This is like, to me, what I'm seeing with all this stuff is almost like, hey, Phoenix, stop. Chill right now. What I'm seeing with all this stuff, it's almost like when people, one sec, I got to calm down the dog. Sorry about that interruption. Good old dog here. But what I was getting at is like when people are in Berkeley or in like these high universities and whatnot, there's this curve. And like it's not unknown for students to try and force their classmates to commit suicide because then the grade point average, like it's all about grade point average, right? So when I think of the music world today, it's like the more amazing musicians that allegedly die of overdoses, which is usually a hot shot set up by somebody that wants to be in there, bump up the musical ladder, right? Or they suicide themselves, which I don't believe happens. It just, when amazing musicians go, it makes room for other musicians below them to move up. Do you understand what I'm saying? And with all these, like, just with so many people that they're saying are killing themselves lately, I'm now, the first couple, you're like, oh, that's really sad. But now I'm looking into all of it going, something's going on here. Like, is that where it's come to, that people just, it's like that competitive? That's what I'm starting to think, right? Anyway, but that's just I'm just questioning everything. Okay, somebody wrote, it is suspiciously convenient that he decided to cause controversy right before he released a new album and went on tour. And Motley Crue is also conveniently starting a new tour and has a new TV show. Yeah, well, I never knew that. Okay, so Eddie, you're about to go on tour, and Motley Crue is starting their tour and a TV show, so you're going to take them down? Canceled. Says, but to give Eddie the benefit of the doubt, in the actual interview, it sounds like he was referring to the whole glam rock scene and named a specific band as an example of what he meant, not thinking it would be a good idea. Who knows? Also, Pearl Jam has been given enough shit over the years and called every name under the sun. So maybe he was like, fuck it, it's my turn to talk shit. Yeah, that's a great attitude. I think we should all just say fuck it and start shitting on everybody that shat on us. Good thinking. I'm so glad. Let's just start following and listening to people that are promoting love, peace, forgiveness, compassion, and not this. Cancel people, you guys. This is what's going into our heads. The frequency. So if you're listening to a singer that's like this woke and this bitter and this ignorant and this disrespectful, that is going to your subconscious mind through the frequency in his voice. You really think about that. Do you know that I threw out probably $4,000 worth of CDs this year? Because I'm like, ugh. Like, I don't have one Pearl Jam in my house, but I have Temple the Dog, I have Mother Love Bone, I have Chris Cornell, I have Audio Slave, I have Alice in Chains, I have Stone Temple Pilots, I have everything, but not one Pearl Jam in this house. Not one Pearl Jam is allowed in this house. And the only thing that is my house regarding Eddie Vedder is the movie Singles, because, such a good movie. We will review that under the movie segments, but no. Who you listen to, you should research who they are as a person, because that's being absorbed into your subconscious mind and is playing on you, is playing on your daily life, especially if you listen to certain albums over and over and over again. There are subliminal messages. Call me a conspiracy theory. And I mean, if that, you can look at me that way and I'll look at you as like walking sheeple. But that's the truth. Start researching who the people are that you're listening to, because they're going to affect your lives, whether you believe it or not. So somebody else said, agreed, except that Motley Crue was definitely not one of those people. Hair metal was what it was. Stupid, vapid, cheap, boring, and soulless in the end. Lots of sizzle, none of Iggy's steak. fly over country for the likes of the Velvet Underground and separately. Lou Reed, the Stooges, New York Dolls, T-Rex, etc., until they came in for a landing. Brushed up against Guns N' Roses, rode the jet tires over Alice in Chains, and crashed head-on into Nirvana. I guess that's a breakdown. What does this say here? Someone said, yeah, and it's really boring and hipster of them. It would be nice to hear from a 90s alternative band that is actually open-minded enough to actually like something from glam metal. I don't understand why people brag about their narrow-mindedness. Yes! Thank you! Learning to Fly. He posted that a day ago. Learning to Fly. Oh, you need to join this channel because you're the kind of person I want on this channel making comments. Like, right on. Let's reread that. Yeah, and it's really boring and hipster of them. It would be really nice to hear from a 90s alternative band that is actually open-minded enough to actually like something from glam metal. I don't understand why people brag about their narrow-mindedness. And that's interesting because Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain, all those amazing, Andy Wood, guess what? They were all people of substance. And the reason why you're not hearing open-mindedness is because all the open-mindedness, amazing people from the 90s were killed off. That's why. And we're left with the Justin Biebers of the 90s, hands down. Sorry, Justin Bieber. I didn't mean to insult you. Someone learning to fly. That's, oh no, somebody responded. See, I like learning to fly. Learning to fly, they got their head on straight. Somebody responded to learning to fly. Said, love Pearl Jam and Eddie's voice, but I find Eddie self-righteous. Yes, totally. He drives me nuts. He's so arrogant. Despite his high-mindedness, he still isn't a Dave Abruzes wanted him, despite his high-mindedness, he still shit on Dave Abruzes, wanted him out, but wouldn't even speak to him, manipulated Stone to do the sacking while he hid somewhere. And in the Ticketmaster saga, Stone doing the court appearances while he was off surfing or whatever. Bang on, right on. That's exactly it. So people ask me, well, why don't you like Eddie Veddar? It's not that I just think that he needs to grow the F up, right? So I don't like him, and there's somebody I don't like, but wake up, step out of your own shadow. Like, you quit being so obsessed with your own reflection, man. Like, start opening up the doors to like respect other people, and other people start respecting you, buddy. I mean, what are you, 58? You haven't figured that out yet? God, I always say when people haven't figured out their shit by their 50s, they're never going to change. Like, I don't know what makes people think they're going to change. They're not going to change. Not going to change. This is who he is. This is who he's always been. Hello, he's a dick. Someone said, if you take a shot at Motley Crue, you take a shot at Mick Mars. And that shit just can't happen. Right. Somebody else said, since none of us were actually there when Dave A was fired or when they decided to take on Ticketmaster, we don't really know what the dynamic was like or whose ideas they were. We don't know why Stone and Jeff did the court appearance either rather than the whole band or whoever. You were just assuming you know what Eddie is really like and blaming him for everything. People are complicated and so are relationships. See how boring Eddie's fans' responses are? Somebody said, jealousy, because metal ruled for an entire decade. Grunge only lasted for 5 years, if that. Pantera ruled the 90s single-handedly. Yes. Pantera? Yeah, 100%. Pantera rocked. Somebody said, I don't think anyone considers Pantera glam metal or a hair metal band. Thus, they are exempt and can continue to be badass. Well, yeah, because Pantera was badass, right? Somebody else said, absolutely not. My point was just even with Absolutely not. My point was just even with grunge. Pantera was pure heavy as hell metal and rolled those 90s grunge bands. Even though their career was relatively short for a metal band, they still outlasted the grunge bands. Well, Pantera, yeah. And there's a reply. Well, since PG is still around and making new music and Pantera is not, they didn't outlast them. They also didn't outlast Mudhoney. Well, Mudhoney was awesome. Soundgarden, Audioslave, awesome. Or the Melvins, awesome. And I'm sure there are others. But my point was that no one is saying grunge killed all metal bands. Just the silly hair metal glam bands, which didn't include Pantera or most of the thrash metal that continued on just fine. In fact, Thrash metal also helped kill the glam metal bands. Hold on, dog problems. Here's a response. Ridiculous. If you actually think Mike McCready didn't watch players like George Lynch, Randy Rhoads, Vito Bratta, and Mick Mars, you're delusional. You cannot like someone's music but still respect their playing. They were so damn good they were such damn good guitar players in the 80s. Agreed. The guitar riffs were outstanding. And the drumming too, like wow. And somebody said, bingo. If it weren't for those old blues guys, there would be no rock and roll. Chuck Berry took the blues to the next level and it went from there. Right. They were paving the road for next generations. Eddie, continue paving the road. Why do you want it to stop at you? Like, really? I could never handle a life of just your voice. Sorry. I used to love your music till you became so full of yourself. Like, trust me. I had every album until I was like, get off yourself, buddy. Somebody responded, really? There's one original singer left alive from the grunge bands. Soundgarden is done. And Stone Temple Pilots and Alice in Chains have different singers. So technically, those aren't the same bands anymore. And Cottrell is the only original member. Jerry Cottrell. Oh, Jerry Cottrell. He's amazing. I love his story. He's got such an awesome story. We'll share that one day. Somebody responded, you can say that if you want, but can't deny the musicianship of bands like Rat and Dokken. Somebody else said, dude, chill. I don't care if they were listening to something or the other. Motley Crue sucks since late 80s. See? There's a woke 90s person. Somebody else said, you're right about one thing. Those shitty bands towards the end of the 80s helped put a knife in that decade. I'm not talking about bands like Rat and Dokken, but those horrible bands like Poison Warrant, Trickster, Firehouse. They sucked in all that, the same formula, with those stupid commercial ballads. Somebody said, you say 1989, when you heard Soundgarden, you knew hair metal was dead, but yet in 1992, 3 years later, 80s metal bands were still dominating the charts. Van Halen, Ozzy, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, all dominated the charts that year. Yes, they did. Hate to bust your bubble, but 80s metal wasn't gone till about 1994 when Kurt Cobain died. Trust me, I lived it. You know what? I lived it too, Emilio. Thank you. Somebody said I lived it too. It's pretty well established that by 91, hair metal was being overshadowed by alternative bands. Go look at the Billboard charts. Guns N' Roses wasn't hair metal to begin with, and every other band you listened and outsold by RHCP, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Metallica, etc. The sales albums tell the tale. And somebody replied, laugh out loud, really? You're making comments that don't make any sense. So you think Tommy Lee is a basic drummer? Name of the drummers for any of the... Somebody's trying to say name one of the drummers for any of the grunge bands that's better. I'll wait. Oh, I agree. Like, you can't diss Tommy Lee. Good luck, right? Somebody said, my mom and stepdad actually met Eddie Veddar. Wait. Hold on. Where was it? My mom and stepdad actually met Eddie Veddar when they had an errand to run in Tacoma a few years back. I guess Eddie was having a house constructed there, neighboring where they were at. They said he actually approached them and introduced himself and seemed like a really nice guy. I was jealous as hell. And then someone said, interesting comment. I'm always surprised when people are excited to meet a celebrity. It means absolutely nothing to me. Unless I was actually friends with the person and had something to talk about, I'd be like, hey, it's that famous person. Small world. And keep walking. That's exactly how I feel. Someone said, a friend of mine met him getting takeout in West Seattle. When she told him that his songs meant a lot to her, he thanked her by giving her what the heck? A friend of mine met him getting takeout in West Seattle when she told him that his songs meant a lot to her. He thanked her by giving her and writing thank you on her rubber band as he had on his wrist in a hug. Okay, so basically I think he just said thank you on a rubber band he had on his wrist and gave her a hug, but this person has no punctuations or rhythm or rhyme. Another friend worked at the costume store in Seattle, and he came in and brought a bunch of rubber kiss masks. She said he was funny. Oh, okay. I don't find that was even interesting. Someone said, I love both styles, hair metal for fun and grunge for the deeper lyrics and meaning. They are so very different from each other, and that's what I love. The variety of different styles. I think it's important because, let's face it, if I only were to listen to grunge, I'd get suicidal. I need some fun 80s music from time to time too. It's a balance. Yes, I totally agree with your comment. Thank you. Someone said 100% different scenes because they're from different cities. LA and Seattle are like day and night to one another. So that's an influence on the music and lyrics. Another responded, I'm still trying to find deeper meaning in Smells Like Teen Spirit, laugh out loud. Someone else responded, Cobain wanted it to be a call to arms to cure Generation X's apathy. Yes, he did. Another response, if that's what you make of it, brother, that's good. Sounds like random shit to me, but it sounds good. Lyrics don't make any sense, but I guess they don't have to. I mean, look at Come Together by the Beatles. I Am the Walrus. Personally, I found deeper meaning when I found the band Tool, but I must admit, I wasn't a big Nirvana fan back then or now. I liked some of their songs, but wasn't over the moon for them. I was more into Tool, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots, and Rage Against the Machine. You had my music collection, friend. Tool and Alice in Chains are the only two bands still standing now, and it's sad. On another note, I do really like the Foo Fighters. Okay, that's part of my collection that you and I don't have in common. And I guess that's where I want to leave it at that. I'm going to leave it at comment. I'm going to reread some of that. Someone said, lyrics don't make any sense, but I guess they don't have to. Okay, you know what? But that's why I'm doing this channel. Because lyrics do make sense, and that's why we're doing deeper meanings, right? So anyway, this video is going on past what I like. I'm trying to keep them around a half an hour range. So thank you for chiming in. Please comment, how do you feel? Are you totally in the 80s and hate the 90s? Are you an 80s fan who can't stand the alternative rock? Are you alternative rock that can't stand the 80s? Or are you like me where you just love it both, but you don't like the arrogance? That's what I say. Arrogance kills the art, right? It's nothing against Eddie Veddar. I still think you have a beautiful voice, but it's your attitude that it's actually repelled me. And until you actually change your attitude, I will not continue listening to you at all. Like, I always change the station when you come on. When people put it on, I'm like, ugh, can you turn this off? I just can't handle this right now. You change your attitude, your music will change. I'll be a number one. I'll be a fan again. And that's how I feel. So everybody, please leave a comment. If you have a song attached to a story you want me to break down or share, leave it in the comments section or email me at sarahzago80@gmail.com. Also, leave in the comments how you feel about, what was pulled off here between the two. Do you think either of them were aligned? Who do you agree with? Who do you disagree with? How do you feel about it? All right, please, 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 please exercise peace, love, forgiveness, and compassion towards everybody you meet in every situation you come into, and don't react. Like, choose today is a day that you're like, nah, I'm going to let it go. Be a better version of your be a better version of yourself every day. Today, be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. Tomorrow, be a better version of yourself than you were today. And guess what? You're going to be the change in the world needs to see. And if we all do that, and we all come together and we try and be the best versions of ourselves, we can get this planet Earth where we a nice place to live and a place we all want to be a part of. So everybody, go on, spread your light, spread your love. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you didn't, I offended people, sorry, but that's who I am. And I guess I'm, like I said in my last videos, people either love or hate me. There's no in between. If you choose to hate me through this video, you know what? I love you back. If you choose to love me through this video, thanks for being my friend. Anyway, welcome to the Soul family. Sorry for the interruption of the dog in the beginning, and now Bobby over here that seems to be quite vocal. I hope you have a fan-freaking-tastic day. Go pump some Motley Crue. And you know what? Also, go pump some Mother Love Bone, would ya? Cheers to Andy Wood. I still think, I don't know. It's sad. We're going to have to do a mini biography on Andy Wood because he's he really was quite the talent for someone who died at 24. Anyway, peace, love, forgiveness, and compassion. Go spread your light. Go spread your love. Have a magical, wonderful day. Thanks for chiming in. We'll talk to you very soon. Ciao for now. Ta-ta. Bye.